Hey there YouTube, how's it going? Nerdy Narwhal here, and I'm back again today for another 6-scale action figure review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the VTS Toys Golden Order Vargam the Raging Wolf. Now, if you're like me, you've been following this figure for a little while now. It is a third-party Elden Ring 6-scale action figure. Not the first one we've gotten, but certainly the most exciting looking one so far. It's a fully armored knight, and without further ado, let's pop this bad boy open. Immediately, it doesn't look like it has any sort of art box. It's just this cardboard box with some foam inside. Now, I got the regular edition, not the exclusive. The exclusive, not exclusive, but deluxe edition did come with a few more pieces and a pretty cool display base. Not too important to me, nor do I think I really have the room to display it, so I just went with the regular. And here it is, still entrapped in its foamy prison. Man, lots of cool stuff here. Let's adjust the camera, lay this bad boy flat, and start with the review. All right, so first off, I'm going to start taking the accessories out of here, and we'll go into that. The first one looks to be an ancient dragon smithing stone. That looks awesome. It's golden. It's a little plastic piece, but let's see if I can get that to focus any better. Looks absolutely wonderful. The next one is a furled finger. I believe this one in particular is used for invading players in other worlds, and that's an accessory that I thought was just going to be with the exclusive or the deluxe edition. So it could be that the deluxe edition was really just the Sight of Grace and the chair from the round table hold, which if that's the case, I really don't mind missing out on those items. Next we have the dragon heart with the gravel stone in there. Again, that's awesome. This looks just like the game models when you're in the item screen checking out items. That looks great. That's awesome. More accessories than I'm ever going to display them with, but it's still fun just to have them. That is the bell that you use for summoning your spirit ashes. If you have yet to get good, call in the mimic tier and have it carry you through most of the hard bosses in the game. There you go. These are a couple of pretty essential items right here. Next, this is your health vial, your flask, not your Estus flask. Replenish your health. That's awesome. And one for your magic meter. Great. There is your stone sword key. Again, the sculpt is just phenomenal on these. The fine details that are in there looks great, and that will unlock lots of doors for you as you're exploring. This is the Finger Slayer blade. That looks awesome. Not actually usable, but you give that to Ronnie to help complete her quest line. All right, next we have the torch. Oh, and it looks like the flame effect is removable. So let's get into some of the detail on the torch there. All looks good. Flame effect pops right on like that. And that would be a pretty good, there we go, pretty good offhand accessory. Now we're gonna get into the shield. The shield is just plastic, so it's nice and light. It's not going to affect posing at all unless the body's garbage. We'll find out when we get to that, but oh, there we go. Just holds it in his hand. Looks good. Right on. Now we get to that staff. I'm not sure which staff this is exactly. The name is slipping. It's the Carrion Glintstone something. I'm not an intelligence user in the game, so I wouldn't really know. But there we go. Looks really good. You can cast all of your blue missile attacks with it. There we go. All right. Now on to some of this stuff. Those are just extra wrist pegs, which is nice. Damn Toy, or VTS is pretty much just Damn Toys' unlicensed product, so the wrist pegs are going to be the same. I like them. They sit really well far up into the forearms. Creates pretty nice and sturdy for poses. Now on to the big stuff. We get the Sacred Relic Sword. It looks awesome. Right up here to where it starts to get translucent with that holy magic. If you're like me, then you've used this to farm hundreds of thousands of Albinorics. Now, it doesn't feel very thick. In fact, it feels like it was 3D printed almost. It's got a little flex to it, which is good, but tiny parts like this feel like they could well be susceptible to snappage. So I would say caution is advised when utilizing this particular accessory, although it is nice and light. So while the sword itself is going to be almost as large as the entire rest of the figure, I can't see it being a hindrance in terms of posing, which is really nice. Had they used a heavy die cast, you know, the joints could get floppy right out the gate and you wouldn't be able to pose it for nothing. So that is all right by me. Oh, and I almost forgot the last accessory, the four-toed fowl's foot, or the gold pickled fowl's foot. So while you are using your Sacred Relic Sword to farm thousands of Albinorics, you also just pop one of those bad boys, and it makes the whole process a lot more efficient. Now let's get into the figure proper. Right out the gate, one thing that I noticed was that one of these knee pads had just popped right off in the box. So looks like there's a couple of tabs in the back there for me to just glue that in. We'll see if it's as easy as all that later off camera, probably after this review, but that's kind of a bummer. Hopefully it's not indicative of the quality of factory glues used throughout this piece. A couple of extra hands, a wide gripping hand, right on, and a left. This is probably the one that I'll end up using. Kind of an open, splayed out hand. Looking cool, looking pretty good. You get the same one on the right, and you get a tighter right gripping hand, and a tighter left gripping hand, as well as one of those, maybe a little accessory using hand for ringing the bell. And now here we are finally with our Raging Wolf Vargram entirely out of the box. If you are like me and you did not go for the exclusive version, then you will not be getting a display base for this figure at all. Now, it's not a super big deal. Usually VTS has a really ornate display base included with their exclusive versions. But their non-exclusive versions are always pretty nice too. Just a circular base with some wood paneling or something cool for the character that they're doing. That is not the case here. Not a big deal if you have a bunch of them lying around like I do, so I've just got them on this old wooden one for now, and that's gonna work for me. But do be prepared. Now, what's kind of nice about that is that I really don't think this figure is going to outright need a display base. And now let me talk about what I mean. All of this ornate armor on him is plastic. None of it is metal, none of it is die cast. I think some folks in the forums were assuming that it was going to be die cast. And VTS had even said that they were modifying the underbody that they used, which had me interested to see what they were going to do. But this really just feels like any other VTS 6-scale figure in terms of form and functionality. And the plastic armor means that it's not going to have any trouble supporting itself or staying nice and tight. So let's go in for a close-up real quick on that sculpt. Now, most of FromSoft's characters are really stylized, and the heads don't look like they would actually be a head inside of armor. They're kind of tiny when compared to the rest of the body. That's what we have here, and that totally works out just fine. Looks good, close to the in-game model, and it looks awesome on display. There is some additional paintwork throughout the armor, as you can see on that greave, or that knee piece, the other one of which still needs to be fixed because it popped off right out of the box. You get that nice silver going into gold, going into more of a rose gold. And then down there at the very bottom, you get some real nice golden and ruby inlay work for the shin guards. Now, if you leapt at the TT Toys version of this same character, then you know what it is to already be disappointed with a 6-scale Vargam the Raging Wolf. I'm happy to say that this piece completely makes up for the failures of that other piece, and you can calmly throw the TT Toys version into the garbage can where it belongs. Let's just rotate the figure real quick so you can see what's going on there. Quite a long mane coming off the back of the helmet, which is accurate. I don't think it was quite this clean, but looks just fine. It's not going to get in the way. Some awesome embroidery work on the back of that cloak there. Looks marvelous. Let's get in to see what's going on these shoulders, those shoulder pauldrons. More of that really intricate sculpt and paintwork, particularly right there. It looks like it's been rusted or well used in places, and that's not a look that's carried on evenly throughout the figure, but I really like it where they have done it. And back to that head sculpt. I'm sure that the knots they used to tie this on were accurate. I'm going to need to figure out some way of adjusting that so that it doesn't come right up under the chin. I wonder if I can do that on camera right now. If I just take this string and pull that tight, tuck that into the armor. There. Sitting a lot better now. All right. Don't neglect that horn that he has on the side there. And I'm happy to note that All of the cloth goods used here, his little skirt and his cloak, do have wires. So if that is your shtick and you like getting those capes posed up, you will be able to do that pretty easily with this figure. All right, now finally, let's get into articulation. While this may be a beautiful and intricately well armored action figure, that can oftentimes hinder a figure's articulation, and it does here in a couple of places. So from the top to the bottom, let's see what we're getting ourselves into. First of all, that head sculpt will tilt left, right, and back and down really quite well. All the bosses in Elden Ring are huge, so maybe that tilt up is rather important. There we go. That's actually great for a 6-scale armored figure like this. I have no issues with the head articulation. Arms can go out to 90, up. Let's get a little rotate there. Back. And up. There we go. And really, there's no issues hindering the arm articulation. This piece is held on with just a piece of cloth, that pauldron there. It's attached directly to the torso armor, so it just kind of gets out of the way of the arm, which is something that I, who loves having these armored figures on display, really appreciate. Now let's get into the elbow, and this is the first place where I really am going to notice that the armor hinders articulation. That's about as good as it's going to get on that elbow. You're going to come right to 90 degrees, and it's not for lack of a double joint. That is a standard, nice, tight VTS double joint in there. The only reason you're not getting the maximum range of motion out of it is going to be on account of the armor itself. So the top part of that elbow armor is going to hit the bicep, and the bottom part is going to hit the forearm right there. Now, do I mind having a figure that's only able to get 90? No, not really. But if you did want to get that arm slinging the sword over the shoulder, kind of like how you actually travel with it in game, you're not going to be able to quite get that. So if that's a big deal for you, then keep that in mind with this figure. Unless you pop that elbow armor off or wiggle the wrist joint out of socket a little bit, you're not going to be able to get that iconic sword over the shoulder pose. Torso, you're not really going to have much. Well, hold on, I might have spoken too soon. So this torso armor is completely different than the rest of the figure. This is a super soft, malleable rubber material, which means that with some struggle, you are going to be able to get some torso articulation out of this figure. That is actually an awesome design implementation by VTS Toys. They've been in the game forever, making figures for a long time, so it's cool to see a little bit of innovation like that. It works okay. It's not necessarily a piece of articulation that I felt that I needed with this figure, but I'm happy to have it, and I'll take what I can get. So now let's get on to the legs. This little piece of armor here, it's going to move around and get out of the way. So I'm not anticipating too much hindrance with the leg articulation, and I'm not going to get much hindrance either. Leg's going to come up that far real easily. Double jointed knees are going to go that far back without any issues, and you're going to get a nice double ball joint at the ankles for all of the articulation you could really want. And all right, YouTube, that is going to wrap up my review of the VTS Golden Order Vargam the Raging Wolf action figure. I'm pleased as a peach with it. It's really an inexpensive third-party figure, but the quality shines through consistently, from the design choices that they implemented down to the paintwork, the sculpting of the very detailed and intricate armor. Yeah, I'm super pleased, especially after being extremely disappointed with the T-Toys version. I'm gonna see if I can salvage that into maybe some sort of custom knight character. But if I can't, then I'll toss that into a bin somewhere and never think about it again and be totally happy because I have this representation of one of the most iconic characters from Elden Ring on my display shelf. Now, if I've missed anything or you have any questions, feel free to get at me in the comments. If you spent $150 some odd more than me and you got the deluxe edition, I'd be really excited to see how that ended up coming out. Judging by everything else that we have here, I'm sure it's phenomenal if you have the display space for such a big diorama. But that's gonna do it. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to get at me in the comments. Otherwise, stay happy, stay healthy, and keep on collecting. Bye-bye.